Synopsis of the books of the Bible. Major Prophets. Jeremiah. By J.N. Darby. Chapter 25. Universal Judgment beginning with Jerusalem, the earth given into Nebuchadnezzar's hand. Jeremiah 25 closes, so to say, this part of the prophecy with a general summary of God's judgments on the earth, giving it into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar. The immediate application to events already accomplished does not offer much difficulty, but we shall find a good deal if we would bring in also an allusion to the last days. Israel, to whom the door had always been held open, is first judged. The chapter begins by announcing the judgment of God upon Jerusalem because she had refused to hear the call to repentance which had been addressed to her during 23 years. And here let us notice the hardness of the people's heart, stubborn in evil, and refusing to bow the neck to God's testimony, in spite of all the pains God took, if we may so speak, to warn them. And indeed it is his own language, Jehovah has sent unto you all his servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, but ye have not hearkened. 2 Chronicles 36 verse 15. Jehovah had always set before the people a full and abiding blessing if they repented, but they would not. The prophet announces that Jehovah will bring all the families of the north under Nebuchadnezzar, against Jerusalem, and against the adjoining nations, all of whom should assuredly drink the cup of judgment that the Lord had mingled for them. Jerusalem shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years, and after that, the king of Babylon himself should be judged and punished, according to the prophecy of Jeremiah against all the nations. For, having begun with Jerusalem, it should be a universal judgment. That which should immediately happen was the judgment of the nations around Palestine, and afterwards that of Babylon, which was the instrument of their judgment. But the fact that the city called by the name of Jehovah was to be laid waste implied the judgment of all the nations. Consequently, in the symbolical action of the prophecy, all the nations connected with Israel, all those of the world as then known, are forced to drink the cup. But this is expressed in terms that include the nations of the whole earth. The historical application of verse 26 does not go farther than that which happened by means of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Sheshach, who should drink subsequently to the others. But a principle of universal judgment is comprised in this. The universal evil is developed, verses 29 to 38. The only question that can be raised is whether, in this ulterior destruction of all the kingdoms of the earth, the expression king of Sheshach has any application to one who shall possess the same territory, or if it is merely Nebuchadnezzar. I doubt its going farther. See Note 1. The picture of universal judgment ends the first division of the prophecy. That which follows gives details and particular cases. See Note 2. Note 1. In either case, the judgment does not appear to me to go farther than the oppression of the nations by the king of the Gentiles, who is raised up in place of the throne of God in Jerusalem, and his own destruction at the end of his wicked career. End of Note 1. Note 2. The destruction of Babylon had a peculiar importance, first, because it was substituted by God himself in place of his throne at Jerusalem. Secondly, because it was the only Gentile power directly set up by him, though all power be from him. The others replaced Babylon providentially. Hence, at the destruction of Babylon, Jerusalem is restored. However partially it shows the principle, and the power which judges Babylon is the setter up of God's people again in the holy city. Babylon, its setting up, its rule, and its destruction, involved the whole of the direct dealings of God with the Gentiles, and with his people in power. All the rest came in merely as a prolonging by the by. End of Note 2.